It's my pleasure to welcome you to Northern Kentucky History Hour. I am your host for tonight, Mary Jane Calderon, joining you from the Education Center at Behringer-Crawford Museum. Also joining me to my left is BCM Curator of Collections, Jason French, and Northern Kentucky music legend, Bobby Mackey. So thank you, gentlemen, for joining me. Before we get started, we have a few people to thank. So the Northern Kentucky History Hour is a project of Behringer-Crawford Museum, Northern Kentucky's history museum, that would not be possible without support. Thank you to all of our sponsors, including the City of Covington, Kenton County Fiscal Court, ArtsWave, Kentucky Arts Council, Northern Kentucky Sports Hall of Fame, the Carol Ann and Ralph V. Hale Jr. Foundation, and our members. If you're not yet a member of the museum, please consider joining for access to discounts and exclusive programming. Learn more and join at bcmuseum.org. So we would love to hear from our viewers tonight. So if you have a question or comment to share, please type it in the chat or the Q&A, and I will be sure to get to those at the end of the presentation. Now let's meet tonight's presenter. So it's going to be led by BCM Curator of Collections, Jason French. Jason joined the museum in 2017, holds a Master of Arts in Public Applied History from Northern Kentucky University, and a Bachelor in Specialized Studies in Interpretive History from Ohio University. He previously served as coordinator of costume interpretation for the Cincinnati Museum Center, and now we are very lucky to have him here at BCM. So before we're going to get started, we're going to say the quiz question. If you've watched the show before, you know that we always have a quiz question, and the first respondent to enter a correct answer in the chat on Zoom or Facebook Live wins a Northern Kentucky History Hour prize, and most importantly, bragging rights. So tonight's question is, what is the name of Bobby's hometown? Okay, and we'll get to that at the end. So go ahead and get those answers in. If I don't reply right away, know that it's because I'm a one-man show tonight, I guess, with the technical stuff. So I will get to those as soon as we're at the end of the presentation. So Jason, if you're ready, we can go ahead and get started. And I'm going to turn this to show both of you.
I am ready. Are you ready, Bobby?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, Bobby and I have had some wonderful conversations in times past, and we'll kind of address some of the similar things. We're really interested in knowing how one becomes a legend in the Northern Kentucky scene and the community, really trying to, what's your story? Now, as I remember, you weren't from Northern Kentucky originally, right? You were born in a little further east.
I'm not supposed to say.
We might want to wait about the hometown. I'm going to butt in for a second, just because it was our quiz question. We might want to give some time.
All right. Well, okay. So we'll readdress the hometown question. How about this? You've been playing music for a long time. For a few years. You're a young man. Maybe not a long time. How old were you when you got your first accolade for playing music? When was your first award?
Well, at 4 years old.
At 4 years old.
My mom taught me to sing before I can even remember. I don't remember, but she taught me to sing. There must have been something she saw in me trying to make noises and stuff, but she taught me a song before I could even talk, and really shocked my dad when she had me sing for him. But then at 8 years old, when I got my first guitar, it was a Roy Rogers guitar. I got my first guitar at 8 years old, and Mom taught me to play it. And so that's how I got started, living on a farm, and my dad ran a grocery store. My mom and dad ran a grocery store, and I was basically raised in that store.
Mm-hmm.
But when I first heard Hank Williams sing at 4 years old, it changed my life forever. And I'll never get over it. As long as I live, I'll never get over that moment when I heard Hank Williams sing. And I learned that song, Your Cheating Heart. And Mom took me to a talent contest, local talent contest in the area at the local grade school. And she carried me up there and stood me up on the stage. And I stood there and sang Your Cheating Heart. And the crowd just scared me to death. I mean, they stomped their feet and whistled and carried on. They scared me to death. And when I got done singing, Mom was coming to get me, and I didn't wait. I jumped about 5 feet and grabbed her around the neck. I was shaking, scared to death. And she said, "They're doing that because they like you." I ain't never got over that.
Right. Kind of was, that was the, once you realized they liked you, it's all about.
I wanted more and more of that.
More and more of that. So after you graduated high school, right? And you came kind of in our area, you moved maybe a little further west in Kentucky or into the Cincinnati area. What was your first job around here? It wasn't.
I come down here and got a job on the railroad.
Okay.
And I lived in Silver Grove, where the railroad town, where the railroad yards was, and I worked there, and about 4 years, the railroad slowed down in the wintertime when the lakes froze over and the coal stopped running. I'd get laid off every winter. And this winter in 1970, when I got laid off, I got a call from a guy that I'd been going around singing at jam sessions in the area on Sundays. There'd be jam sessions in every little club around. And I'd go from one to the other and sit in, and people got to know me. And this band was looking for a singer. They had a band together and needed a singer. And this guy called me in. And so I heard you could sing. And I said, well, I love to anyway. So anyway, we talked and he asked me if I could, they had a gig that weekend. He asked me if I could come and play with him. And I said, yeah, I can. And so I went and joined him that Friday and Saturday night. And it was a band that was all together. And of course, all the time I was playing and singing around the house. I knew all the new country songs. They did too. So we fit together. Actually, when I got there and showed up, we introduced ourselves to each other and we shook hands and come out playing music.
So you played with that band. What band was that?
That was Red Jenkins and the Country Lads.
Red
and
Jenkins.
I was the featured singer.
Yeah. How many years did you play with Red Jenkins?
I was with them till about 76, sometime in 76, and Red left, and I put together a band of my own, and ended up moving from. I was at the Apple to begin with, that was in Woodland, and I went to the Boulevard. After a couple of years, I went to the Boulevard in Springdale. And I was there till 76. And I left there and went to Julie's in Sharonville. And that was 8 years over those three clubs, a period of 8 years. And everything worked well. When I left one club and went to another, everybody followed me. So it worked well. Well, I got to thinking, the next time I move, I should have my own place. Because they're following me anyway.
Right.
So that worked out. I had some friends from northern Kentucky that were coming over about every weekend to the clubs. And they kept telling me about this place in northern Kentucky that there ain't nothing over there. You'd do great over there. There's nothing in northern Kentucky. Well, they had me come over and look at the old Latin Quarter in Wilder, Kentucky. And all it needed, it was all run down. Everything had been closed for a long time. And but I could see it happening in my mind's eye. I could see it. If I couldn't have, I wouldn't have gone.
Right.
I saw it all happen. I had to make some alterations and move some walls and stuff, and a lot of cleanup and everything. But that's where I still am. So
Well, the Latin Quarter had been a casino and a restaurant, maybe.
It was a Latin Quarter casino, but prior to the Latin Quarter, it was called the Primrose.
Okay.
Primrose Club. And before that, it was just a roadside tavern called the Bluegrass Inn, but that was back in the 1920s.
Okay, so was now from when the Latin Quarter closed, it was nothing really until you had it, or was it?
When they closed the gambling down, they went ahead and had bingo there for a period of time, but then they finally closed that down. They closed the bingo down in '65. Sent a lot of people to prison and stuff, and they shut the bingo down and basically sat there empty. It was a nightclub for a period of time, but when I got it, I turned it into something that had never been before.
Right. And it still is. So you've been there.
The way it was is still the way it is.
Right. So you've been there now 45 years or
45 years, September the 8th.
45 years. That is really something. So
Bill, you when you started this, you said you asked me how someone would do that,
yeah,
and I had an answer ready for you. Determination
determination.
and love for the music.
So just for the sheer determination, the stubborn, bullheaded love for the music and determination.
You're exactly right. And I didn't know any better.
Hey, that's how we get into anything, right? It seemed like a good idea at the time. Sometimes people don't like that answer, but I think it's a valid answer.
Well, but it's all about the music for me, and always has been since Hank Williams captured me 4 years old. And I still sing some of Hank's songs, and I still do the traditional music, like the traditional George Jones and Merle Haggard. Those are my favorites, and the only one left in that era is Willie Nelson.
Yeah,
He's the only one standing.
Yeah, I just got this, just saw him this last weekend or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun.
Well, I was a fan of
Weekend
his.
before.
I was a fan of his in my early days when he was in Nashville, recording, and everybody accused him of talking. He talked when he sang. It was his own style. He knew what he was doing, but everybody else, well, he just talks when he sings. But I liked his music from the start, and I don't think anybody's ever written better songs than he was. Chris Christopherson, maybe.
Yeah. Chris Christopherson's pretty fun sometimes,
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've had Bobby Mackey's there in Wilder now for how many? I mean, I guess the question is, and I think somebody asked me to ask you this one today. How many different people have you played with that are famous, or have you had it, Bobby? Have you had
many
kind of?
Well, the ones that about say it all is Merle Haggard and George Jones. I had them both there.
You had them both playing there. That's something.
Yeah, that about says it all. But it had lots of others. Vern Gosdin, Gene Watson, had many singers there through the years. But we hadn't been open very long, and WSAI had gone country when the cowboy thing started.
Yeah,
and we kept hearing about the Urban Cowboy movie being made at Gilley's out in Pasadena, Texas, and WSAI had just gone country, and the general manager had been the sales manager at WUBE, and he called me, wanted to have lunch. He wanted to see what the station could do to help him, because we were good friends and everything. So I went and met him for lunch, and he introduced me to my sales representative. And but he didn't hardly say nothing. He just listened the whole time. So I laid out I've heard about this mechanical bull that they're using in the Urban Cowboy movie. They're making it Gilley's right now. So I laid that out, and I think that'd be something we might look into, because he wanted to know what kind of promotions I wanted to do. Well, the sales rep that was there didn't say much. The station was new, and he was a new sales representative there, and the guy that was the general manager was introducing me to my new sales rep. Okay, well, we said goodbye for lunch, and we went home, and in a couple of hours, I got a call from R.J. Seifert.
Oh, yeah.
And he's my promotion manager.
Right, one and only RJ, right?
He called me and he said, I got all the information on this mechanical bull. They're making the movie, and Sherwood Pryor, that owned Gilley's, was making the bull. Told me how long it would take to get it, how much it would cost. He had the whole thing run down. I said, well, I have to see it. I said, I can't order not knowing nothing about it. And I knew that Texas was rodeo oriented, but I didn't know if Kentucky would be that way or not.
Right.
But we found out. So anyway, we got on a plane, RJ, and I flew to Houston, and Gilley's had somebody meet us at the airport with a Gilley's t-shirt on. That's the only way we knew who we were. So he rode us to Gilley's, and we stayed there all night, and they were finishing up the movie in the parking lot that night. And when they shut down the filming in the parking lot, Deborah Winger came in, and she rode the bull. And so I realized right then all the girls out there were riding it. Everybody was having fun with it. I thought, I think Kentucky will accept this.
Oh, yeah.
And they did. We went ahead and got it. It was about 6 months before the movie come out in 1980. We got the Mechanical Bull, and we were already advertising on WSL.
Mhm.
We were advertising, and when people would go see the movie, when the movie come out, people would flock to the club, and there were people standing in line up the street to get in because they saw this big old Mechanical Bull and John Travolta riding it in the movie, and they knew we had one, and here they come. And the place was crazy for several years out there.
Is that the same bull that you still have, or have you had to replace?
We wore out about 7 of them.
We're out 7 of them. Well, I guess in 45 years. I guess you go through a few Mechanical Bulls.
Yeah, that's the original right there on the screen, right there, on the right.
Oh, yeah.
That's the original. See, it's different from this one.
Yeah, yeah.
This one, the one we got now, it's remote. That one, when you set the speed on it, you couldn't change it.
Oh.
So when you turned it on, the speed, anybody wanted it on, they were gone in a few seconds. But all of them we've had since has had a control where you could conduct the speed.
Yeah.
And if somebody gets in trouble, you can slow it down and, test them again, slow it down. And sooner or later they lose their balance.
Right, right. Well, I went to, I guess there's a Gillies in Dallas years ago that I was at a conference, and I went and rode the Mechanical Bull there, and coming out of that, I'm like, well, sure, that's a good ab workout. I guess you could have a whole, exercise routine on a Mechanical Bull.
Yeah.
You don't see fat cowboys.
Unless they got a cowboy hat.
Right, right.
But it's been a great ride, and we had a live radio show on WBE for about 4 years in a row every Friday night, and it's just been a lot of fun, and RJ's still with me promoting, and I'm still making records and singing, and I've been recording some good stuff. I've had some #1 independent records.
I was going to ask you how many kind of #1 hits you've had over the years.
4 or 5. And see, music has changed. This stuff that they call country that ain't country took over the country market. And what used to be country radio that I wanted my music played on, they ain't no shot no more because the music is just not country. I wrote a song called What They Call Country Is Not Country. They just stole the name. And it's on YouTube, and I get more requests for that song than anything.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's really the music is, I don't know if I want to call it evolved over the years. It doesn't really feel like that to me, but it really has kind of moved out of its roots and got a little more pop.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I mean, people like different things, but I think there's something about that pure country sound that the old music had. They really coming out of the life experiences, the people that were, growing up in Eastern Kentucky or in Tennessee or Texas, and people, that there's something about the music that's.
I still resent them still stealing the name because what they do is not country. But I'm still country as I ever was when I was 4 years old and I heard Mike Williams.
Right.
I'm still that country, and there's still a market for that because we still get them.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Kentucky. And through the years. For years, I always played more for the dance floor. I wanted to satisfy the dancers.
Mm-hmm.
But, I play some upbeat stuff, and I make sure I sing some slow love songs and all that. And it seemed, I just followed that. But it's gravitated to a place where they don't dance so much anymore. They sit and listen. And in my recording career, I love that in the songs that I've been recording. And the country music, I think I've figured out that they've been hungry for country music, right? And they sit and listen because they can't hear it nowhere else.
Right. Well, and I mean, I've just here in the last couple of weeks, there was a kid that got on YouTube and just recorded something that sounds an awful lot like country, and it struck a note here nationally.
I think it's a message.
Yeah, it is, and it's a message, and it's a sound. that really strikes a note. And I think that's what you get with kind of country music as it was, and as it maybe still is in its heart. And some of the stuff that's overly produced, and
It's just sad to think about all the singers that have gone. All the singers I grew up listening to, they're all gone except Willie.
right.
But it's amazing but my love for the country music has never changed.
Right.
And I got a great band. They're country. They like the same music I like. And everybody knows we're there. And it keeps on working.
Yeah.
And we're blessed.
It's really interesting, how all that works. Now, I will something that you and I've never really talked about. It wasn't anything that in our previous conversations I wanted to talk about, but I know there's going to be people that are going to ask questions. And I want to ask, so now you've kind of the Bobby Mackey's is known for hauntings in its own thing. So I just
get that.
I just wanted to. I'm going to try to ask questions that you don't normally get, if I can. And I know that's one you would get. But I'm just curious, like, when was the first time you had heard kind of this rumor that there was stuff there? I mean, because I know you'd been there, for years before it really started kind of picking up, and then how you've navigated that, because you want to be known for the music, I know.
Exactly.
Not that, it was a slaughterhouse or whatever it was that people think is.
Well, a lot of the history has to do with it all.
Right.
But after I got there, we hadn't got opened up yet. I'd never heard nothing about Anna. And it was in April of '78 when I started preparing to get the place together and working toward getting it open and being, new carpet, and to cut the stage off, because during the gambling days, they had a runway on the stage, and I needed that for dance floor, so we hacked that off. And but there was a kid up the street, that closest house to the place where he grew up. We were there one evening, making our plans, and this kid, 18 years old, walked through, Carl Lawson, walked through the door, and, "Hi, I'm Carl. If you need to know anything about this place, I know everything there is to know about this." He knew where all light switches was. He knew everything to know. Okay, well, fine. So we needed somebody. So we talked to him, got him to help us clean and paint and spruce up a little bit. And he ultimately became our caretaker. He'd stock the beer and sweep the floor, and you have it always ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was before we opened. And he started saying stuff to me, and I was so into everything, I barely paid attention.
Mm-hmm.
And he kept talking to me about stuff, and it got my attention. I said, "Well, what are you talking about? I hope you ain't talking about what I think you are." And he said, "You wouldn't believe what goes on around here." And I said, "Well, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't want you telling nobody about it. I don't want to run everybody off before I get the doors open. Where I come from up in the country, somebody talk about a haunted house out here in the country, I wouldn't go near it for nothing.
Right.
It would keep me away from it." But anyway, when I come to the city, everything was different. Anyway, that's how I got started. That's first I heard about it. I told him not to say anything about it, and he didn't. And it went 10 years before it ever came out. And Douglas Hensley had been writing short stories and selling little fictitious ghost stories and stuff. And he told me about those once, and told me what he'd been writing and everything. And I said, "Well, Carl's got a real story that's better than that." And I just said that, and Doug went haywire over it. And he'd go to Carl, Carl wouldn't talk to him. He'd come back to me, and I said, "I opened up a can of worms here." And they finally got me together. Carl wouldn't talk to him. He'd come back to me, tell Carl to tell me. Finally, at the end of the night, when it wore me down, I said, "Well, go ahead and tell him you want to, Carl. You've been trying to tell me for years." I didn't expect anything to come up with anyway, but that's where it came.
So that was that's kind of that genesis of how that and then of course that kind of everybody got excited about it. As you think about the time, you're looking late 80s, early 90s. There's been all these poltergeist movies, all this other stuff,
Exactly.
and there was a people were interested by that time. Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters have been around.
Carl told him his story and what he knew about the place and everything, and Doug wrote the book, and I just didn't think it would. I didn't think it would amount to anything, but it hasn't stopped it.
Right.
I have found, like, I still don't believe in it.
Right.
I can't connect. Maybe people can. Evidently, they do. They come from everywhere to spend the night, and they call it investigations, overnight investigations, paranormal groups, and Carl is not capable of making it up. He had experienced something,
Right.
and the name of the book was Hell's Gate, and there is a well in the basement that they used to drain the blood from the slaughterhouse. The site was a slaughterhouse in the late 1800s, and they drained the blood into this well. The tunnel goes under the railroad track into the Liquid River.
Okay, so that was the way that they drained, because and there was so many slaughterhouses in the area, and the pork industry and everything was so strong.
Yeah.
That makes sense, that especially along the Licking and near the railroad tracks, it's a prime place for that kind of.
And supposedly, calling it Hell's Gate, it had to do with the entrance of the paranormal coming into the building. They built the building over it. Some years later, they built the building over it, and lots of people, lots of shows have come and done stories about it. But it's me sticking to my music and paying no attention to it, and everybody throwing it at me.
Right.
Even bigger than me, I couldn't stop it. But I was embarrassed by it.
Right. Well, and that was one of the things, like when we first talked a year or so ago, I had no desire to ask you that question, but this is a longer form interview. So I know that people are going to be asking the kind of the questions.
It's world known.
Right.
Ghost Adventures, they've done several shows on it, and it's all over the world.
Well, I guess it brings people to your doors.
Well, people come by in the summertime on vacation, coming through here. Well, this has been on my bucket list. Will you sing Johanna? I wrote a song about that. So
did you?
It's on YouTube too. I wrote a song called Johanna, and Johanna is supposedly one of the spirits there. And there's a long story about that. I won't go into that, but I wrote the song about it, and the song is sort of a synopsis of the story. Right.
Well, and and there's so many things I've heard of, maybe Pearl Bryan and other aspects.
Yeah, and that's a long story too.
Well, I don't know where we are with time.
Don't test my memory.
So I'm trying to think, because it's been a lot of fun talking. Let's get back to, so we really haven't addressed where you came from, or the town, your youth.
Is it time to answer that question?
Well, it might be time.
Somebody's already answered correctly. So
Okay, so you're from a little further east in Kentucky, maybe in the mountains a little bit, or
no,
just east?
East of Maysville.
East of Maysville.
It's an hour and a half drive from here, and I grew up there in my mom and dad's grocery store in Concord, Kentucky.
Okay, Concord's in Lewis County,
In
right?
Lewis County, near Vanceburg and Tollsboro. I graduated from high school in Tollsboro, and I grew up there. And when I was a baby, Mom was working in the grocery store, and bananas came in a banana box about this long, that handles them, and they packed the bananas in shredded newspaper. And Mom will take the bananas out and lay them up on the meat case for sale, and she'd wrap me in a blanket and lay me in a banana box. So I was raised in a banana box.
Now, did I see something that you've got a road named after you now?
Oh, yeah. Bobby Mackey Highway runs from right in front of where my dad's old grocery store used to be, out past the old grade school where I went to grade school.
Oh, shoot, that's something.
Yeah, I always tell everybody I go up there. When I go up there, I knock the dust off the sign, but I'm just lying.
Get there, repaint it. Biggest pressure
But
washer.
I am very proud of that. It was, Lewis County, is a lot of great people there in Vanceburg, and got a lot of friends and family up there, and go back there once in a while. And talking about my mom taught me to sing, taught me to play guitar. She passed away a little over a year ago at 103.
Really?
Yeah. And she still had her mind and got on her feet every day.
Oh, that's amazing.
It was. I'll always miss her, but she's at peace.
Mhm. That's amazing. So let's see. I'm trying to think, because I wanted to bring up the road. That was something, and I knew that we were going to have to talk about some of the other things.
About family life.
Oh, it was
We've got some
family.
pictures of
Well,
family.
that's
Oh, yeah.
because then you and your daughter do stuff together now.
My
right?
daughter Anita and I have been singing together, and we had a #1 song recently, a duet that we did that worked out well for us. And we're right now in the process of recording a hymn, recording a gospel song together, and it's in the works right now. And we're getting an award for the last song that we had together. I can't think of the name of it right now. Anyway, we're getting a award out in Houston, Texas this October at the CMA of Texas.
Mhm.
It's the duet of the year.
Oh, that's great.
So really excited about that. But we're recording more and more songs. My new release just now coming out. And I've wanted to record this song for years. First time I heard this song was in 1965. Waylon Jennings wrote it and released a song called Anita, You're Dreaming.
Mhm.
And I love that song. I said right then, if I ever have a little girl, I'm going to name her Anita. And I did. And then we're singing together.
Oh,
So
that's
my
amazing.
new record, I did a remake of the Waylon Jennings song, Anita, You're Dreaming. It's my brand new record.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So, it reminds me of something else I was going to talk to you about. At one point in time, you had to decide whether or not you were going to stay around here or go to Nashville, right?
That's exactly right.
What was that decision like? I mean, what was the
Well,
catalyst?
yeah, as I mentioned earlier about, I always had the success of going from one club to another, and I'd always been successful in the club. So I had this opportunity to get the old Latin Quarter there in Wilder, had this opportunity to do it. And the decision was, I was at a turning point. I thought I should move to Nashville, but the security is here, and I have a wife and a baby girl, and the security is here. I thought, well, if I own the club, I can go to Nashville anytime I want to. So I opted to get to my club. And, I got to say, playing music there in Wilder and in the club and all the folks in Wilder has been so great to me. And I'm so glad I stayed here, because if I'd have moved to Nashville, every time I'd zero in on something, in fact, every time I have zeroed in on something, even from here, the way music was going, every time I'd zero in on something, by the time I'd get to the bullseye, they moved it.
Yeah.
And
Move the target.
Then I have to find out which way to go then. And that all leads up to what we talked about, country not being country music.
Right. I
don't fit in nowhere, but I fit in my world with the country music.
Right. Well, and you've crafted, you're kind of that anchor here, where if you would have just been another pretty face in Nashville.
That's exactly
It'd just been another pretty face.
And make no mistake about it, there are lots of George Jones and Merle Haggard and Willie Nelson and Marty Robbins and Ray Price. There are lots of those fans still around here. And the only place they can go is come to see me, because I'm the only one in town selling.
Well, there's the one thing that working here at Behringer that I've really started to appreciate and be impressed by is the sheer amount of musical talent in Northern Kentucky. The
Exactly.
recording studios, the studio musicians, all of that talent that's here, you know, and when you get back into the history where you had Grandpa Jones and others recording, you know, either in Cincinnati
Hank Williams recorded here
right.
in Cincinnati.
So, I mean, with King Records and the other recording studios, who needs to go to Nashville, really?
Well, you know, I do all my recording around here, and Dennis Hensley and I produce my music together, and we do it in our own way, and we get some of the best musicians in Nashville to play on.
Right, right.
So,
Well, Dennis is a pretty nice guy, too.
yes,
I
he
mean,
is. I
He's
love
no
that.
RJ, but he's a nice guy.
He is in the recording business.
I know he is.
But Dennis and I have worked good together for many years, and we're recording some of the best records I've ever made. And my goal right now is to record as much as I can while I still got my voice the way I like it,
Right.
the way I want it. And I'll know when it starts to fade, but right now I'm still going.
Well, yeah, I remember hearing a story about Artie Shaw, the clarinet, the jazz player in the 30s and 40s. And at some point in time, he just sat down his clarinet and said, I've hit my peak. I don't want to be in decline. Well, you're not in decline. You're nowhere near decline.
No, not yet.
So when you hit your, you know,
So right now, while I'm still on top of my game as far as vocally,
Mhm.
Dennis and I are cutting lots of songs. Every time I get a real good song I really love, I'm only cutting stuff I love to do. So we're recording songs, and I'm going to stack them up for just have them in the can for
yeah,
when I can't do it anymore. I still release records.
right, there you go. The Bobby Mackey anthology.
I ain't thinking about not being able to do it no more.
Right.
I'm not even giving that a
No,
not even this much.
well, and that was kind of with the Artie Shaw story. That was interesting because he just gave up, and he thought at the moment that he was going to be in decline, but he may not have been. So how much did he rob people who appreciated his music?
It had to be within him, you know.
Right, it had to be with him.
He made the decision
You know,
himself.
And if the day that you call it quits, which is, I'm sure, many years from now, whenever that is, right, people are going to miss that. They're going to miss that country music.
But we've created a name there and a legend, so to speak, that people will long many years in the future talk about. I used to go out there in Wilder on Saturday night,
Yeah, right.
My name will be mentioned for many years.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's people will dress up for it. They still, it's part of something that's memory,
And talking about dressing up, we got Halloween coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we get crazy around Halloween.
There, Well, I guess, with the haunted Honky Tonk, might as well get a little crazy.
Yeah, and the tours, people wanting to get close to it, the tours pick up. So everybody wants to go to the basement and see the well and all this stuff. So there's a charisma to it around Halloween, and it's always fun.
Yeah, I bet it is, but it's a lot of fun.
I don't dress up in that.
You don't dress up. You don't even do like the bolts in your neck.
No. No, I could never be no Frankenstein.
No. Yes. Well, I'm trying to think what else. Is there any questions that I've missed? Anything that somebody has said? I just want to.
Well, someone has asked on Facebook, is it true that he rode a horse from Wilder, Kentucky to Nashville, Tennessee?
Yes, it is, but it was from Union, Kentucky, on 42, Union, Kentucky. It was on Thanksgiving Day in 1976. Yes, I rode a horse to Nashville, and a buddy of mine is no longer with us, Jim Hyden, rode with me, and we went down 42 to Louisville and hit 32. We stayed on the back roads, and he rode with me, and it took 6 days. And I did it. WUVE sponsored the trip, and they took up donations so much a mile for my ride. It was 300 miles, they took up money for the National Paraplegic Foundation.
Oh, well, that's amazing. That's really nice.
And did quite well. I don't remember the figure, but they made a big thing of it. And I called the station from different places on the trip. Go through the little town, had a phone booth. I called the radio station. And they'd interview me on the air, how everything was going. Well, how would you expect it to be going? Riding in a saddle all that way.
Sore. Really sore.
One guy said I was riding high in the saddle till the blister busted.
I could, yeah, 300 miles. Ooh.
But it was fun, and I rode. Actually, my reason for riding it down there, I went down to pick up a new record I've just released.
Oh, yeah.
So I rode down there and picked up the record.
You didn't ride back, though.
No. It was a cushion coming back.
There's a Gilly story to coming back, wasn't there?
Huh?
Bringing the horse back to.
Oh, yeah, I was playing at the Boulevard out in Woodlawn. I was at the Boulevard out there, and they had the club. I was off that whole week, and so they had Mickey Gilly there on Saturday night. Well, we got down there and loaded the horse up in the horse trailer and stuff, and we eyeballed back and got to the club, the Boulevard, where I always played. I played at that time, and Mickey Gilly was there. And when I got back, I got on that horse and rode it right in the back door up on the dance floor. That was, I was, well, I hope this horse don't start bucking. But I did it.
No, that's something.
There's a book here somewhere.
Well, I mean, in 45 years of having the club, and how many years were you playing music?
8.
8.
3 other clubs, 8
3.
years before that.
So
It's 53 years.
53 years of being in the industry
Yeah.
and being an entertainer. There are a lot of stories.
But I spent all my years growing up rehearsing for all this. When I was 4 years old, and started playing guitar, and all through high school. Music was always on. It was never a moment I wouldn't think about music. I'd be riding the school buses 12 miles from my house to where I lived to high school, 12 miles, and I'd be looking out the window riding on the bus thinking about playing music.
Yeah,
all the time. See that picture there?
Yeah.
That picture was taken the afternoon when I opened the club that night.
Really?
And RJ, we did a duplicate of it last year. Me standing in the same place. It was 44 years after that.
Yeah, that's something. That's something.
Look at my face. You think I wasn't worried? How's this going to work?
Well, I mean, it was a little bit of a leap of faith. You had this. You weren't sure yet. You thought you had your people, and they were there. They were there for you.
Yeah, and I think the realness of the country music, the truth of it, the realness of it. Well, they say 3 chords and the truth.
Yeah.
Something like that, and people connect with it, and they always have. I love what I do. And that's the bottom line.
So here's, and it may be a difficult question because do you have a favorite song you didn't write? And of the ones you wrote, can you pick a favorite? I know it may be your babies. So, do you have favorite? I mean, I'm sure Hank and others are really near and dear to your heart.
Yeah.
But is there one that you would, I guess, favorite or you enjoy singing the most?
There is one favorite, and it's a Merle Haggard song. Tommy Collins wrote it, but a Merle Haggard song, and it took me a long time to figure it out, but because everybody asked me my favorite song, I couldn't come up with one really. And
It's hard to pick sometimes.
one day it hit me. It's not a well-known song. You may not have ever heard it. Merle Haggard song called "Long Black Limousine," and I sing it now and then just because I want to.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always been one of my favorites. But as far as a favorite that I wrote, probably that Jones Boy Is Gone. I wrote a song. I wrote the song before Jones passed away.
Mhm.
I wrote it as when that Jones was gone. And after he was gone, I changed it to now that Jones was gone. And it's probably the favorite song that I've ever written. It's got more good lines in it.
Yeah.
And it all pertains to George Jones. And it's wrapped together, and I'd have to say that's probably the favorite song.
That's great. That's great. So what is it in this vein? When you're playing you might take requests. Is there a song that gets requested more than others?
There used to be, but not so much anymore. You know, everybody just accepts what I do.
What you play.
But there have been times, Hello Darling was always one of the big requested songs when it was out for many, many years.
Mm-hmm.
And I've recorded that song. It's in the can. I haven't released it yet. I'm looking for the right place to release it, but I've recorded Hello Darling. And another song, Behind Closed Doors, Charlie Rich song, was always a big song in people's mind. But that's a couple that I could mention.
Yeah. That's something. Trying to think, is there something
We
that,
can look on here. Let me go ahead and
let's
look.
go
on
ahead
the
and look and see what
camera away
people,
just for a second to see what we've got some messages, and I apologize because a lot of people are having some trouble hearing Bobby a little bit.
Oh, really?
But let's see. We had some guesses. Well, let me go ahead and say who won the trivia question first. So the answer was Concord, Kentucky. And that was someone on Facebook, Joe Ortlieb, answered correctly. Right away. Sorry,
Joe
Mary,
Ortlieb?
beat you.
Orland out of Silver.
And then
Regular.
let's see.
He knew.
Luann wants to know, does Bobby sing every night or just on special occasions?
Friday and Saturday night. Every Friday and Saturday night.
And Donna said, hi, Bobby. Good to see you.
Oh,
Let's see. Let's go to our Q&A. Are you going to do anything at the bar for your 45th?
Yes, we're having the whole weekend on the 8th and the 9th, September 8th and 9th, Friday and Saturday night. We're celebrating the whole weekend.
All
And
right.
I don't know what RJ's got in store. He ain't told me yet.
we'll have fun. We have fun planned.
Okay, and that looks like all of the questions and comments that I have here on Zoom.
well, let's think of some other thing that,
We've got about,
You know,
let's see, about 10
you had
minutes.
the Wilder City Limit. sign
Yeah,
there
yeah.
a while ago. A couple of years ago, they put my name on a home of Bobby Mackey's.
okay.
Proud home of Bobby Mackey's, Wilder, Kentucky. So again, I'll say Wilder's been great to me, and I sure appreciate it.
Oops.
Well, it's, you bring people into the community, they have a good time. And they get to hang out with you,
Yeah. And-
celebrity.
And I love visiting with them. You know,
Yeah.
there are people that I know. I know so many people when I see them that most of them I can't even remember their names.
Right.
But, you know, that's a flaw of mine maybe, but I know them when I see them.
Mhm.
And I also shared a photo of you as a bobblehead that RJ had sent me.
Oh, yeah.
And now we have someone asking, where can I get a Bobby Mackey's bobblehead?
I don't know.
On the internet, right?
On the interweb.
Maybe we should get some of them.
Bobby Mackey merch.
They'd be good for Halloween.
Oh,
wouldn't they?
there you go.
Well, you've got some requests for some. And then he also said you're the best country music, best place.
Great. Thank you very much.
That was
I appreciate everybody checking us out and listening in today.
Right. Well,
It's been a lot of fun.
it's been fun, and I'm trying to see if I can come up with some other question other than, what's your sign or something.
I'm an Aries.
Well, I'm a Sagittarius.
Well, I've always been compatible with Sagittarius.
There you go. That's why we get along. No, it's a really, I love the music, and all all the time I've been in our region, I've heard a lot about Bobby Mackey's. Even before I worked in Northern Kentucky, I worked at Union Terminal, Cincinnati Union Terminal, and I had a coworker that was, I think he was contacting you, and we were going to do some work with you at some point in time, and that fell through. He got sick.
I used to work out of the Union Terminal on passenger trains.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when I first went to work on the railroad, I was a road brakeman is what I was. Most of the time I rode the freight trains, but on the extra board, I'd get called out to fill in for somebody on a regular on the passenger train wearing the uniform. And many times I've left out of Union Terminal, but went right through my hometown of Concord.
Oh, yeah.
The railroad track went right past my dad's grocery store, right beside it.
So that, if it was passenger service, that would have been the George Washington.
The George
back then,
Washington, but there were two went east every day and two came in west. But I go to Huntington, West Virginia, and lay over and catch the next train back.
Yeah, that's see, my family all lived at Raceland.
Yeah, I worked
So
right through there.
at the Russell Yards and
Yeah,
Raceland.
I
And,
worked into the Russell Yards. When I was on a freight train, I'd go into the Russell Yards. When on a passenger, I'd go into Columbus.
Yeah,
Or not Columbus, Huntington.
yeah, that's something,
Someone commented, don't forget about Pepsi Man.
Oh, Pepsi Man.
Oh, yeah. Wow, boy, we had a good run with that. In fact, Dennis called me and said that I come in the studio here and he's wrote this song. You got to hear this song. You're going to love this song. So I went over to the studio and heard it, Pepsi Man. And I recorded it and we put it out, and the Pepsi picked it up and promoted it. And they had me playing at Pepsi rallies all across the United States. We were in Kansas City and many major cities, Jackson, Tennessee. Anyway, we played all over, and I was the Pepsi Man, see, and they'd have motivation rallies for the local bottlers, and they'd have all their drivers come in to like a Marriott or something and feed them a big steak and everything. And the record went top 50 in the national charts. And so they'd have me and my band behind the curtain. And they'd feed them, and they had no clue I was there, but they'd all heard the record. And when they'd get done eating and everything, they'd introduce me and open the curtain, and I'd come out singing the Pepsi Man. They'd go nuts. That was a lot of fun. We were all over with it. It was in 1982. That's what it was.
In 82.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that was, you had the club for 4 years at that point.
Yeah, it was, we got a good run out of it. And Pepsi really promoted it. But then I had Hero Daddy was a song I had out too. It went #1 in Cincinnati. It didn't hit the national charts because the radio station said it was such a downer that it was a sad song and they didn't want to making their audience sad, so they wouldn't play it for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, well, that was the reason. That's what they said anyway. But it was #1 here in Cincinnati for a long time.
Well, that's so Pepsi. I can't believe we forgot that.
Yeah, well,
We were enjoying the
So
conversation.
thank you, Donna, for
If
reminding
I'd have
us.
thought about it, I'd have brought it up.
Right.
Someone's also asked, how much did the place cost when you bought it, Bobby Mackey?
That's a good question.
I don't remember.
And are there any plans on writing a new book?
I don't remember, but it was worth it. I've thought many times about writing a book, but I'd have to have a ghostwriter because my attention span is not that good.
Well,
I know
somebody's
what I'd
going to
like
make
to
a
say.
pun about that. Haunted Honky Tonk Ghostwriter.
Never thought about
There
that.
it
Maybe I ought to speak to it. Well, anyway, I love what I'm doing, and I don't want to quit, but I know one day I will.
I think people are not ready for that anytime soon.
I'm not either.
Someone also commented, it's always a great time when you have Sean Hammonds and his son-in-law.
Oh, yes. He's 11 years old. Casey Hammonds. He brings him up to the club. I think he's coming to town this weekend.
Yes.
Sean and Carolyn and Casey. he is ate up with music just exactly like I was growing. I mean, he thinks nothing but music, and boy, he plays that guitar and sings. He reminds me of myself so much. But the crowd just goes crazy when he goes sing. And we had him up there, his birthday, the weekend of July the 6th. We had him up there, and it was his 11th birthday, and we playing and singing, and went on and on. And Sean came up and told me, he said, "You gotta watch him now, he'll hog the show, won't you?" But I love Sean. But Sean and I've been friends. Sean, Carol, and Casey's just he's just amazing, absolutely amazing.
Oh, that's something.
And we're about out of time. I don't know if you had.
So let's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bobby
Thank
and
you.
Jason, for
Thank
a
you. I
wonderful
appreciate y'all very
conversation.
much.
Let's see
Thank you,
here.
Bobby.
We're gonna.
It was really fun.
Well, yeah.
Right. Okay, I'm gonna turn this right now. So we are going to get to some promotions coming up here at the museum here at the end. So let's see, it's hard to believe, but our last Music at BCM concert is tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. with the Hot Magnolias as they bring their Nolan sound to the stage. It's going to be hot, 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 but we will have plenty of cool beverages to keep everyone cool. The doors open at 6. Please bring chairs or blankets for seating. And we'll also start our online auction for silent art tomorrow evening. So the auction kicks off as part of Fresh Art 2023 with previously completed artwork by local artists that will be on display at BCM and available for mobile bidding on our website at bcmuseum.org. Be sure to purchase your ticket to the party with a purpose on September 9th as well. This is our biggest fundraiser of the year, and there's so many wonderful pieces that would make the perfect addition to anyone's home or office. Tickets are $60 a piece and include light hors d'oeuvres and an open bar. Those are also available for purchase on our website at bcmuseum.org. Our next Chippy's Sensational Kids Club is going to be on Wednesday, September 13th at 11 a.m., celebrating National Kids Take Over the Kitchen Day. For children ages 3 to 5 with a parent or caregiver, it costs $3 for materials per child, plus museum admission. You can call the museum at 859-491-4003 to register. Lastly, our next Northern Kentucky History Hour is going to be on Wednesday, September 6th, with Brian McIntyre returning to present part 2 of the history of Camp Ernst from 1954 to 1979. So please tune in for that. For more Northern Kentucky history throughout the week, check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, where you can find the latest Curators chat, along with all of our past Northern Kentucky History Hour presentations. They are also available on our YouTube channel at BC Museum. Please like and subscribe. That is all we have time for this
Can I
evening.
interject one more thing?
Oh, sure.
One more thing for
I completely forgot. On September the 16th, we're having a Wilder Fest in the field there at the Wilder City Building. Mayor Valerie Jones is having Wilder Fest, and it starts at 2 o'clock on the Saturday afternoon. 2 or 3 other bands are going to be there, and I'll be there. We'll be picking and singing at the Wilder Fest September the 16th.
September 16th. Sounds
Thank you.
sounds great. So that's all we have time for this evening. Thank you again to all of our sponsors and supporters. Until next time, take care, everyone, and good night. Thank you all. Good night.